Okay, so the idea here is to go ahead and dissect Glaceon into shapes to kind of try to draw it. So I'll give you an idea of how to do this, and we're just going to have fun with it. So I'm going to switch to kind of a pink because it contrasts the blue nicely. We'll go ahead and lock this layer and just create a layer on top of it. So for the head, as you can see, this is going to be, mostly a circle. Now what you want to do is you don't want to go with the head crest, that's going to be a separate shape, so you just want to kind of think, alright, what would this look like if the head crest wasn't there? And so that's pretty much like a circle. So there we go. Now for the head crest, this is going to be just a bowl shape. We're not going to go too fancy, but just a bowl. So far, nothing too complex. We literally just have a circle and a bowl, and if you turn this off, see, it's not that difficult. So for this, we're going to make this really easy. We're going to dissect this into two triangles. So we've got one triangle, and then you just draw another triangle on top of it. And same thing here, one triangle, and then draw a triangle on top of it. And the reason you want to do this is you can kind of play around with the proportions and kind of start stylizing it later. Now, for the facial features, we're going to draw a line down the middle, and then we're going to curve around the face. Now you notice I have the nose right there where the crosshair is. You want to pay attention to that. So you're just going to draw, like if it's straight on, you're going to draw that. Now, in reality, like if this was turned, and I'll do one where it's like this, the snout would push out a little bit, so just keep that in mind, and you have a nice little smile. That we can focus on later. Now for this, for the eyes, what I like to do is you kind of want to, I like to carve out kind of an eye socket, so like this, and then once again this is just to give it some structure. And again, I'm going to do a different pose after we're done so you can really see why all this matters. And yeah, just for the eye shape, like they're doing kind of an angry, but I've seen other kind of shapes done. So for the eyes, I'd recommend kind of looking at them as like an oval or a sphere. And the reason is you can play around with the expressions a lot and kind of stylize them. Again, we'll get into that in a minute. So I wouldn't try to draw the neck just yet. Try to find where the chest is instead. So the chest is going to be right here, and I recommend using kind of this, kind of like a pentagram or hexagon shape like that. And there's a reason for that, just because it kind of tends to make like the shoulders a little easier. Now for the shoulders, this is another area you can kind of stylize a little bit. You want some kind of spheres, and you notice that you kind of want to line it up. There we go, like that, see? And I'm not being too precise here, I'm kind of keeping it loose. Now this is, Glaceon is Digitrade, meaning they walk on their toes. So what you want to do is, what I like to do anyway, is I use kind of some sticks. So with Digitrade, the paws are going to be this direction. So these are mostly straight down, so you can just draw it a little bit like that. And then at the base of these, you're going to have some kind of sphere shapes. Again, don't try to go too hard and fast on this. This is just going to be a cylinder. This is just going to be a cylinder. This is just going to be a cylinder, cylinder, cylinder. Really simple. So we just have two spheres and some cylinders and then spheres at the base. For this, you can just do that. Again, we're just kind of trying to figure out what shapes we're going to use. And then for this, then you just connect to the head. Boom, pretty simple. Now for the body, we're going to use another circle. And just like before, you want this to be kind of, what's the word? You want this to kind of, you want to take into account that the hips are going to jut out a little bit. So for this, you notice this isn't actually that much bigger than our chest. And then you're going to want kind of this shape, so it's going to kind of mirror this. And then just have your hips jutting out like that. And they're not going to be that extreme. Again, you can even use ovals if it kind of helps you visualize it a little better. And then same thing with these. you're gonna have, like, since they're actually kind of sitting on their legs, again, this shape will mirror this. So this is some foreshortening, so it's really just gonna be a cylinder, cylinder, and then you're gonna have the same little sphere. Now, finally, for the tail, I would recommend, once again, just 2 triangles, kind of make like a little diamond. And you notice this works pretty well. Like you might want to, like this works pretty well. So you make just a little diamond, and you're just gonna connect this like with a line, and then just kind of make it get skinnier, like that. And this is very much like, you mentioned having some trouble with Sylveon's ribbons. So it's very much the same kind of idea. And then same thing with the tail. The tail is just a bigger one of these. So you just diamond it again. It's going to overlap the ear. This is a draft. You don't have to worry about that. And boom. And so these are the shapes of Sylveon. Okay, that's a little rough. Not going to worry about it. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to utilize this outside of just the original position you did this. So we kind of want to keep in mind everything that we just did. It's going to make, it's going to be important. So, and then for this, of course, I forgot to break down the bowl. So before that, once again, we're just going to make a diamond. Pop this up, and that's really all you have to do is just make a diamond, and then maybe give it a little bit of definition here. Just keep in mind that this is kind of a 3D shape. Yeah, see? Works great. Now we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to try to do this from a different angle, like I said. So, we're going to do something called a line of action. So I'm going to create a new blank layer. And line of action is basically like, it's used to kind of determine what your character's doing. So for this, we're just going to do something really simple. So I'm just going to do this, so it's just going to be standing. But it's going to be a different position. So we're going to start out exactly like we did before. Okay, like I said, just like before, but this time, now this is a different angle. So we're going to have this. This is our center line. And then we're going to have something that's kind of like this. And you notice that the center line is kind of, it's right here. So the nose would be kind of right here. But we want the nose to kind of jut out a little bit. So what we're going to do is, about right here, we're going to have just a little bit of a jut out like that. And we're going to push this out a little bit, like that. And kind of have it curve around. Again, this is just a draft. And we use kind of the same expression. So we're going to make kind of like a Nike swoosh because it's going to be more exaggerated. This is kind of going around the face. And just like before, like I said, we're going to have, this is where those eye socket things that I was talking about come in handy. Because you see over here, the eye is going to be much flatter, so we're going to use the same eye shape as we did before. I'll just keep it simple. So there we go. And then over here, however, it's going to be really, really compressed in. So you're just going to kind of have like a little bit of it. And a lot of that will actually be, like you'll barely be able to see this eye because this eye will be kind of covered up. And then same thing here. If you remember, we had a, a diamond. So you're just going to want this. And you want the diamond to kind of curve a little bit along with the shape of the bowl. And maybe even be covered up a little bit like that. And then just kind of push that down like that and push that down like that. For the ears, if we pull up our image, kind of come into, so we'll make them like from right here. Again, just kind of play around with it, but if you remember, we had triangle 1, triangle 2, And you notice I'm just sticking with the shape breakdown. Triangle 1, triangle 2. There we go. And for the inner, then you just kind of... Now this, it may be a little scrunched because you probably want the ear to face forward. So to do that, you just make this side fatter than this side. And that's kind of how you make it look like the ears are kind of facing forward. And then you can also scrunch this a little bit. This is what I was talking about, like, once you have the basic shapes down, you can kind of play with how thick or thin things are to kind of give it depth. There we go. And then, like I said, this is a rough draft, so you would probably like smooth this out a little bit. For things like animals and living creatures, normally you don't want a bunch of like hard jagged lines. So now for the chest, what we're gonna do is, like I said, hexagonal shape, hexagonal shape. And then we'll go ahead and start. If you remember, this circle was about the same size as the chest. And for like canines and dogs, their midsection goes in a little. You can kind of probably want a little bit of a curvature for the spine, like that. Or maybe even make it go in a little like this, something like this. Not too exaggerated, otherwise it'll look weird. But you remember then we had our cylinders for the, what's it called? The shoulders. And if you want, you can kind of try to draw like a line or something just to kind of know where to draw the second cylinder to make it look kind of good. But we got something like that. And then, like I said before, we're going to have cylinder. And never mind, I know it looks weird now, but never mind about it. We're going to fix it in a sec. Cylinder. Because again, this is Digitrade. But since they're just standing, you want very, very, what's the word? You don't want it to be too stark. You want it's going to be mostly straight. And then you just draw these little feetsies. Again, I'm being really loose with this. I normally do 2 or 3 drafts to kind of clean up things. And then, like I said, just like in the sketch, just connect it out. We're not going to worry about it too much for this. Same thing. So we're going to have bigger cylinders this time. And then I would have a second one here, which would be like the one on the other side. And then just cylinder. Now, a good thing I'd recommend on this is kind of just draw a ground lines, because if you draw these feetsies, and actually this feetsie should be kind of slightly below, like this. So let me, before I go too crazy here, I'm going to back it up. I've already gone way too much, so we're not going to do that. Okay, we're just going to set this, I'm going to switch to erase. I said I'm going to switch to erase, thank you. Alright, just really, we're not trying to be a hero here right now. I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible. Turn off erase. This line should probably be slightly below. You don't want like enormous amount, but just a little bit. It'll make it look a little bit like it's sort of like it's 3D, like it's actually in front of it. Same thing here, though. You're going to want to draw your feetsies. And again, the thing is their feet are going to be, they're actually staying on their toes in this one, instead of like here they were sitting down, but since they're standing up, they're going to be slightly smaller. So same thing that we did with the shoulders. We're just going to draw some cylinders. And you can, if you want, you can make it a little bit dynamic, like point one of them forward. And then just keep in mind the direction that it points. And then same thing here. And again, I'm being really loose with this. And then you're just going to connect this like this. Connect that like that. Connect that like that. Really, really loose. maybe make that a little bit bigger. Like I said, the idea is don't feel like you have to draw the whole thing in one sketch. I normally do like a ton of different sketches to kind of play around with posing and all kinds of stuff. You can do as many sketch layers as you want. And then, like I said, for the ear, the little tassel thingies, just draw some. That's not a correct direction. Alright, and then just that. Again, you can workshop this as much as you want, and then same thing for the tail. Just wherever you want the tail to be, that's your tail tip. And then here we go. And now we got a pretty decent Glaceon. It could probably be worked on a little bit to kind of clean it up a little bit, but for a first draft, this is pretty decent. From here, you could start, like I said, filling in details. You could start really cleaning it up. Like you could go back to your thing and be like, oh, this, the tail needs to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to make it bigger. You could start stylizing things like maybe you want the chest to be skinnier on your Glaceon, or maybe, you want to add like you could add stuff very easily to this. Like maybe you want a handkerchief. Like, see, really easy to just pop that in there at this point. Or, and so you just do some draping. Don't need to be a hero. Just really, really loose. But yeah, it gives you a lot to work around with. I really recommend using this method. Like I said, if you master it, it can be really beneficial. But yeah, I hope this helped, and feel free to reach out.